Welcome to the Through the Table podcast with Tom, Rick, Russ, JL, and Brock. Thank you for tuning into part 4 of Through the Table podcast number 17. Enjoy the show.
Well, that's why the dark side of the ring blew up so much last week, is all the 20 to 30-year-old kids and people that are wrestling fans now had no idea about the plane ride from hell.
Well, as you guys mentioned last week too, they did a nice little cartoon about that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did a nice little funny cartoon. Oh, it's the plane ride from hell. Look at this.
Exactly.
Whee! Everybody's laughing and joking around. Meanwhile, Brock Lesnar and Kurt Hennig almost killed everybody.
So I was listening to another podcast today, and
There are no
like
other
how Jonathan
podcasts,
Coachman
Rick.
came out and was. I know. I'm sorry.
Unless it's one by Joey
But,
Janela, we don't care.
It is. It's the I Love Joey Janela podcast.
Oh, okay. All right. Go ahead.
That is this podcast.
So they were talking about how like Jonathan Coachman was, saying how like Vince wasn't on the plane, but everybody that they interviewed, all said that Vince was on the plane, and Coach is like, I'm telling you, he wasn't there, blah blah blah, and it's.
I don't even
And
think
they were
Coach
just saying
was
how
there.
like
Coach wasn't there.
right.
No.
Well, that's the thing. It was at no like
I could say Vince isn't
nobody
there.
would-
Who's going to?
But like they were just saying how like it's stuff like that used to happen because even I think someone brought it up last week. It's like, oh, they didn't even mention the Vince and Kurt Angle wrestling story, and it's like,
Yep.
well, that was the year before, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just like,
Oh yeah.
it's
There's
like
so
how many ridiculous plane rides can you have? You know what I mean? So it's just
Right.
it's that stuff. It was such a like just second nature for all those guys to just screw around on airplanes and rib everybody and drink and do just ridiculous crap. That you know what I mean? Like all these airplane stories kind of meld together at some point.
It's not just the plane ride stuff either. It's. I mean, I remember watching a show in Lowell, and Michaels was leaving the ring with Diesel, and they found some girl by the entranceway, and they took her over the railing and brought her in the back. Like, stuff like this happen on the road all the time. You got a bunch of guys who are, drinking, doing pills, doing whatever, and you're a superstar. You feel like you can get away with anything. Ric Flair, I don't know if he did what they're saying he did or not. He swears he didn't. But I don't doubt that he's done some stuff. Because when you're put on that high pedestal and you are a superstar and you have women throwing themselves at you, you get to the point where you start thinking every woman you. I'm really giving Brian a lot of work this week. But
Hey, it's
though,
quite all right.
you get that mentality that, think about it. I mean, in our daily lives, if there's like 2 or 3 girls during the course of a week that might flirt with us, all of a sudden it's like, right, the kid's got it.
Right. Right.
But
Mhm.
now you put yourself on Space Mountain and you've got girls all around the country throwing yourselves at them. You're gonna think everybody wants to. It's
Right.
I'm not defending it. I'm not saying what he did was okay, but I
mean, not for nothing. He used to, like how many times did you see like a promo on the old like NWA from like the mid '80s or whatever, and it's like it's like, oh, I'm at the Howard Johnson's or the whatever, the Hilton. You know what I mean? Like
and he was serious about that.
and he's dead. And 50 girls would show up at the Hilton bar, like, all right, where's Ric Flair? You know, and so I mean, I get it, but it definitely doesn't make it right.
No,
You know,
and I'm not saying it makes it right. I
I
don't
think
want
he
to sound
made-
like
I think he made an updated statement that he did indeed was naked and dancing around and stuff like that, but he didn't touch her or put her in the corner or anything like that.
I think he's had about 15 things he said since it aired now. I think every day he says something different.
I don't remember grinding my feet on Charlie Murphy's couch. Yeah, I grind my feet on Charlie Murphy's couch.
Right.
but even just even it's like we said, there was the WWE story time. It was a cartoon.
Yep.
You know, the naked Ric Flair cartoon,
Uh-huh.
and then
Yep.
I think there was someone's book. I forget whose book it was, but there was like a story similar that, you know, Ric Flair liked to tap unsuspecting females on the forehead with, you know, little H. And you know, it's just, I mean,
Uh-huh.
when you hear that many stories, it's kind of like, all right, you know, there's got to be some kind of morsel of truth to it. Like,
Oh, sure.
you know, like I said, maybe, you know, then again, it's like you said, it's not like he's denying, you know, yeah, I was naked as hell underneath that robe. You know what I mean? Like he never once was like, but, you know, I like, all right, yeah, but I didn't force that lady to, you know, to grab me.
Right, right.
You know, but like Tom said, it's just probably just for years and years and years, just being Ric Flair, you just doesn't know when to shut it off.
Exactly.
And again, I'm not justifying what he did. And now I don't know if you guys saw this, but I'm seeing stories that Michaels and Jannetty back in their rocker days were
Yep.
tossing somas into or whatever into drinks of girls and bringing them back and stuff. So I believe that with Jannetty. So
He's still doing it.
I believe that with Michaels.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of stories that we haven't heard about him. His pre-finding Jesus days.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure there's a ton out there that
Oh,
we
yeah,
don't want to know. I'm sure.
I've heard plenty. I've
Uh-huh.
read some. It just, yeah, it's
He's kind of a piece of.
Totally. Yep.
I mean, you could actually.
So many
blame him
people
for-
so many people hated him, but he was
Yeah.
just so good that they gave him a pass, but they just
Right.
there's all those stories, even up till the match against Stone Cold at WrestleMania. He almost didn't show up for it.
I mean, I
You know,
personally blame him for Candido dying. Because if it wasn't for him messing with Sonny, I don't think Candido goes down that path.
Well,
yeah, but he died from a botched
It was
surgery.
from
didn't
it
he?
was something from a surgery. Yeah.
He broke his leg in a cage match at TNA,
Well,
and
Yeah.
then
And he
like,
had
he wouldn't have
surgery and then
worked
it
that
was
match.
complications from it, I think.
I mean, I guess I can see what you're saying. That I'm sure, you know.
Well, Sonny went through a lot of people.
Everyone?
Yeah, and especially in the ECW locker room. I've heard a couple stories while Candido was having matches
Oh,
that things were happening in the back,
Her back.
Oh, boy.
right?
yeah.
All right, so I was wrong. I had heard that he was a drug overdose, but whatever.
No, it was
No,
like a
that
botched
wasn't.
surgery.
Yep.
All right, well, so much for me being on my game tonight.
You can't have, you're not expected to know everything about everybody.
But when you look at it though, Tom, you said something. It was he, you know, he got the pass because he was so good.
Yeah.
Ric Flair, same thing. You
Mhm.
you get a pass because he's Ric Flair.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but that's how. You know, it's. I mean, granted, there's always going to be assholes and predators, you know, in any walk of life, but you know what I mean? Like, it's, oh, he's so good. You know, it's like that. You know, the wrestlers like that got a pass because it was, you know, everything was kayfabed and everything was, you know what I mean? Like stuff didn't get around as much as it was, and like that's and honestly I think that's why stuff like this is coming out now, and it's ruining careers because it's like, you know, you have all this, you know, I guess people a lot more. I hate to use the term woke, but you know what I mean. Like you just people are getting canceled for all types of stuff that they, you know, people trying to cancel Robert Downey Jr. for Tropic Thunder last year, and it's like that movie came out what 13 years ago.
At least, yeah,
You
long
know
time
what I
ago,
mean?
right?
So
Mhm.
so it's like stuff like that, but it's like it was tolerated because wrestlers were it was like it was like you know, not a family, but it's like I'm trying to I don't even know where I'm going with it. It's basically just you know what I mean. It was like that underground, like just only the boys knew what was going on. Like everyone else thought it was funny that, you know, Ric Flair's naked under his robe and the Rock is a H bombing girls left and right, and you know what I mean. Like it just and everyone thought it was great.
Yep.
Everyone thought it's hilarious.
Mhm.
To your point, I agree with that 100%. And you see it in other aspects of celebrity as well. And I think probably the most obvious is Kobe Bryant.
Right.
He gets a pass because he decided to take the wrong helicopter. He gets a pass. He raped a girl that we knew of one.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but if you're a celebrity and there's one that's coming out, there's probably about a dozen others. Look at Bill Cosby.
Mhm.
Even if half of those were lies, there's still a ton of people pointing their fingers at him.
Right.
But again, he
Harvey
got a
Weinstein,
pass
same
too.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
these guys
Yep.
get passes
Yep.
because
Because he was funny. Bill Cosby got the pass because he was hilarious. You know, he was that dad on TV.
Yeah, you can give them the pass, but my thing too is if one person is saying something, there's about at least 10 that are keeping quiet,
Sure. Mhm.
and maybe less and maybe none, maybe even more than 10. But if one is saying something, there's a good chance that there's others that are about to chime in and jump in. But we give people passes all the time. Everybody has forgotten the fact that Kobe Bryant raped a girl in Colorado. Everybody's forgotten. It's all, oh, Kobe, the Mamba. Everyone's forgotten. We're wearing his jersey. We're celebrating. People want to make his silhouette the NBA logo.
Yep. Right.
Right.
You know, if Flair died before any of this came to light, because he almost did. If he had died before any of this came to light, would any of this even be brought up? He would be the legend of the nature boy. No one would ever know any of this stuff. And when he dies, I guarantee you people are going to forget all about this.
Sure.
Because in our personal life and our celebrities, the second somebody dies, they were the greatest person who ever lived.
Yep.
How many times have you seen that? You
All
know
the time.
somebody personally who's died. Like, I'll give you an example. A year ago, a kid I grew up with, I'm not going to say his name, grew up right around the corner from me, biggest you'll ever meet. Piece of and I knew he was, and everybody knew he was, but he died last year. Apparently somebody had a heroin problem. So he ended up dying last year. And everyone's like, oh, he's such a good person. He was so good. He's going to be missed. Oh, he was so good. He never hurt anybody. Didn't. He's a prick. But that's what happens. Someone dies, and all of a sudden, they're the greatest person ever. I don't know why I'm going to soapbox about Kobe Bryant. But I am. So I'm so sick and tired of everyone wearing their stupid number 24 jerseys. Raped a girl. He did worse, in my opinion, than what Ric Flair did to this poor woman.
Yeah.
But that's what it was. He got the pass, you know, because he was who he was. You know, they did the payout thing, and everyone called it a day, and everyone went back to, you know, they're as normal as it can be.
Hey, you guys seen the story that came out during the course of the last week too, since that episode aired, that apparently that stewardess and her husband were arrested back in like '08 or '09, something like that, for stealing jewelry.
Really? No, I didn't
Yeah.
hear anything about that.
I don't know how true it is. I saw a
Huh.
quick blurb on it.
Sure.
This is like one of the dirt sheet type deals.
Yeah.
I don't know how true it is. I don't know if it's somebody just trying to discredit her, because that usually is what happens too.
Could be.
Well, absolutely, people could be discrediting, but I also am definitely assuming it seemed that she's had some trouble for a long time watching that. I think Jim Cornette was saying, and I agreed with him, where when she brought up her husband, and his first question was, "What did you do?" When she brought up like what Ric Flair may have or may have not done. That's like the biggest asshole move ever, to be like maybe be more on your wife's side and being like, tell me what happened, instead of being like, oh, you probably invited him back. Like it just, like, as much as her story was very powerful.
Yeah.
It sucked all around for that girl. Like I said last week, I felt so bad for her.
Right. It also seemed though, and not that it's right, but that wasn't her only bad day in life.
No.
That is the best way to put it ever. That was great. She had a perfect life up until that moment. And then everything after that was just fine too. I like that.
I mean, I'm not saying she lived the perfect life, but at the same time, I'm sure, like, it's not often where you get assigned to a plane that has 30 something, wrestlers on it that are, you know what I mean, at all different levels of just wrecked. You know what I mean? Just people, like Scott Hall, who literally slept the whole time, to, Ric Flair's naked in a robe, to Dustin Rhodes singing crap on the intercom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Right.
just, I'm sure, like,
And
I would
then
never
Mr.
expect
Perfect
to just walk.
playing hooky on people all over the place and playing pranks and
Sean Waltman cutting
Friggin-
off Michael Hayes' ponytail.
JBL bleeding all over the place. It's just like once again, I don't, I hate the reference, like Russ just said, Cornette, but it's like the happened on that one flight. Would have been like enough ribs for like 1 year in like an NWA locker room. You know what I mean? Like he always says, he's like, when we were on flights, he's like, we didn't on flights because that's, one, we're up in the air, and two, it's that's a privilege. You know what I mean? Instead of driving 600 miles to the next gig, we'll we'll fly on the jet. But as like the WWE guys, that was just that's just another week for them.
So to my point earlier about the one that we know, what else happened that we've never heard of, the same with this flight. Obviously, there's the Angle McMahon brawl from the year before, but what else has happened on some of these flights that we just didn't hear about?
Oh,
like
sure.
This one we heard about.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of stuff like this because it always takes that one big event for people to open up their eyes and say, well, what's really going on here? Barry Bonds with steroids, everyone was doing it, but he made it obvious and people started to notice.
Right.
The 1919 White Sox, same thing. Everybody was gambling, but they made it obvious. So people looked. And same with this, the plane ride from hell. What else? What other things had been going on right along? There could be other traumatized stewardesses or you name it out there that, nobody knows the stories of. This just happens to be a famous incident that Darkside of the Ring wanted to focus on because it's so well known.
Yeah. Hmm.
But what else is out there? What else do we not know about?
Well, I'm sure there's a ton. It's got to be.
Have you ever listened to the Crime and Sports podcast?
No.
Have you ever heard of that? It's
No, I
called
haven't.
Crime and Sports. It's two comedians, and they pick like an athlete, and it's usually like between like 1.5 to 3 hours long, and it's like they depending on the subject, they'll go through like the person's whole career, and
Wow.
then it's basically like once they, it's like once their career's over and like they start getting into all this like legal trouble, or like then there's sometimes where it's like their legal trouble and their career like intertwine.
Sure.
But every now and again they'll have like a wrestler, as the subject.
Mhm.
And it's usually the wrestling, football, and boxing are usually like the most just like crazy stuff that you'll like. And this like the host, they go into this whole like they just do like a ridiculous amount of research and stuff. They're pretty interesting podcasts, but they'll have like once they did like a Scott Hall one, and it's basically just yeah, they've done Jake the Snake, they've done like a Jimmy Snuka, and but it's like it's kind of like a Dark Side of the Ring, almost like a companion.
Okay.
They're actually pretty neat. I definitely recommend them if you're looking for a podcast. But it's even the non-wrestling ones are fantastic, because it's like I said, it's especially like the host always say like, oh, if it's a guy that you've never heard of, it's probably a good episode, because they're just doing some
Right.
just why else would we do it, because it's super entertaining.
Yep.
But yeah, they've done a New Jack episode, Teddy Hart. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of those like Dark Side of the Ring subjects. They'll usually end up getting a Crime and Sports episode. I definitely recommend them. But it's like the same things, because like sometimes they'll just be reading stuff, like doing research, and some of the things that they're talking about, it's just only in wrestling. You know what I mean? Only in wrestling is that kind of stuff. Well, they got into a bar fight, and Dick the Bruiser shot the Crusher in the leg, by accident, like stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's just that's just another Tuesday in Memphis. It's
Did Arn Anderson stab Sid with scissors?
yeah, he did on a cruise, I believe.
No, it was when they went to UK.
Oh, was it? Oh, that's what. Was it UK? I thought
Yeah, it was
Germany.
a UK tour. Yeah.
And then Arn Anderson just falls randomly
Russ is back.
off the ring apron last night.
Yeah, it was in UK. I don't remember how it happened, but Sid came to his room and went from there.
Man.
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that you do see and hear on the dark sides and the Crime and Sports, and it's like, you don't hear a lot of that stuff unless you're really super into the business, or where to look, or
Sure.
you've just and it's kind of like when outsiders see this kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it blows their mind. Not those kind of outsiders.
Too sweet.
But like even like the Benoit thing, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like that's what got so much traction. It was such a big deal that all these outside people started looking at it, and that's when the friggin' wrestling almost completely went away back in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No denying that.
I was actually talking about the Benoit situation with a buddy of mine last week, and just discussing how you can't really find much of his matches and stuff anymore. Yeah, it's on Peacock, but they don't make it easy for you.
Right. You have to know where to go and how
Really? Mm-hmm.
And obviously what he did was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. Just, I've got nowhere. I had a point going here and I completely lost it. I don't know if you can actually watch the train derail in front of me, so I'm just gonna bail out.
But no, I think that just the point was, it's the, it's like wrestling sometimes is just so that
Sure.
when non-wrestling people look at it, and other people, yeah, it's wrestling, and that just other people, it just blows their mind.
Mhm.
I mean, when you think about it, it's like just like all over the spectrum. It's even wrestlers. It's like you look at someone. Would you drive to go work? Would you drive 6 hours to make $20? You know what I mean? Like, no, you wouldn't do that at your job. Like, I know I wouldn't. Like, if my work called me and was like, hey, can you go to this kitchen 7 hours away and work a shift?
Go up
And,
to Buffalo, New York, and work a shift.
Yeah,
then
do it.
then go down to
It's good
Scranton for tomorrow.
Yeah, when I'm like, all right, where's my check? And it's good exposure. It's good, you know what I mean? Like,
You'll get it in 30 days.
right. Oh, I'll get you next time, kid. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like stuff like that. Like any other job, you'd be like, hell no, they pay me now. But in wrestling, it's like it's just accepted.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Pay your dues.
yeah.
The other thing too, with all of this stuff that's starting to come out, I think we're just scratching the surface. I think we're in for a few weeks here where it's going to get real. But the thing too is you're working a gimmick. You're, especially back in these days too, Ric Flair had to be the nature boy. He couldn't just be regular old Rick, just walking around,
No.
maybe want to enjoy an ice cream cone. He's got to be the nature boy. He's got to be that guy. And a lot of these guys had to be that as well. But, you're off the road, and granted, you're on an airplane, so it's a different situation, but it's hard when you're doing this every night, when you're on the road 350 days a year, doing 2 shows a day in some cases, and you're constantly that gimmick, which in a lot of cases is just yourself amplified,
times 1,000.
Yeah. And you got to try to turn that off for like maybe 5 hours until you're in the next town. And then you got to turn it back on again.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of lines that get blurred. I think there's a lot of things that maybe this is why Ric Flair and again, I'm not defending him. Maybe this is why he keeps going back and forth with, no, I would never have done this, or I kind of remember doing it. Because maybe Ric Flair, the real guy, wouldn't have done it, but the nature boy would have.
Yeah. Good
And
point.
maybe the lines are blurred there. We're asking these people to entertain us, and we're asking them to entertain us in a way where they are something that they're not. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was working matches, the hot stuff gimmick was somebody I always wanted to be.
Yep.
I'm shy as hell and have team issues like you wouldn't believe, but I could turn myself into hot stuff Tom Anthony, who never had that, didn't have those issues.
Yeah.
And it got to a point, especially in my college days, where I would just be the gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be me. I would be the gimmick. And I think it's easy for a lot of these guys. He's driving. There we go. But I think it's easy for a lot of these guys to get lost in that. It changed his name to Warrior.
That's what I think happens is after a while, the guys are the gimmicks now. They're not themselves anymore. It's like 24/7.
Like Bob Evans thinks he's a good guy now because that's his gimmick.
Yeah. Far from it. I think they get lost in their gimmicks a lot of the times.
And
Well,
again,
just imagine like an actor like Daniel Day-Lewis, who's a method actor for maybe 30 days, 60 days, 80 days, set can turn it off, or Sacha Baron Cohen will be Borat for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
These wrestlers can't turn it off because they're circling. There's no days off, as they say. So they're just circling the
Right.
drain over and
Mhm.
over and over.
Yep.
So they have to be Ric Flair. They have to be the Warrior. They have to be Hulk Hogan.
Right.
So once they have a moment not to be, then it's just like, wait a second, what's going on?
They don't know how to do it. Right.
But again, I'm not justifying anything that was done. You know,
No.
I don't want to sound like Tommy Dreamer and be like, it was no big deal. I know him; he would never do this. I don't want to sound like that. If what happened, it's horrendous. That's a terrible situation, and you know, but we expect so much out of these guys and girls as well. We expect so much out of them for our entertainment, and I think we forget that there's not a lot of time where the real person gets to be that person. They spend more time in their gimmick than they can in that real person.
Exactly.
Even, I bring up CM Punk a lot, but even he was saying that towards the end, he was getting lost in what he was doing. His gimmick was more like himself than anybody else's.
Right. Right.
And even he was getting lost in that. And part of the reason why he was getting burned out. So I think we're going to get a lot of stories coming up. And especially now that Ric Flair seems to be a target, I think there's going to be a lot of women coming out soon.
So I met Ric Flair. Was it 2017?
That's the year I met him.
It's either 17 or 18. I met him at a Comic-Con. And I went to shake his hand, and he told me he couldn't shake his hand because when he held it up, this was all purple. And I'm like, and he was just like, I broke my hand 2 days ago in a bar fight. And it's like and he was like, you know what I mean? He's like 70 years old.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, why, but that's the thing. It's just and then I think a couple weeks after that, that's when he all that stuff happened and he almost died. He was in the hospital, but it was, between that and, that around that same time, all those, the rappers and stuff were putting him in the videos. And, that's when he started being it was almost like a resurgence kind of,
right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, so I could totally see that, just him, just being Ric Flair, you know what I mean? Just 70 years old, night before Comic-Con, I'm just going to go punch some guy in the head. You know what I mean? It's just, it's yeah.
Well, it's also like The Godfather. They pull you back in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Maybe he wants to branch out. Maybe he wants to be regular, but then he'll walk into a situation where it's like, oh, you're Ric Flair. You buy me 100 drinks, and then you just reset the clock.
Well, that's, I feel like that's exactly what it was. It was, at the time, there wasn't, I don't think he was really on TV. And then all of a sudden, like I said, they literally started making songs about him. And, this one of the, I forget what rapper it was, but he made this giant Ric Flair diamond encrusted charm. And it was,
Wow.
it was just all this stuff. And it was, I just think that's what it was. I think he got a taste of being Ric Flair again.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of, people were loving it. He's gonna play it up. He's gonna, I'm sure he'd rather be the Nature Boy than, Richard Flair or whatever, and it's just, it's just kind of, it's just, he never turns it off.
No. Definitely not.
And I think that was in either the 30 for 30, or there might have been a network thing on the, and it was how, he didn't have his confidence, and, Evolution really kind of got him back to where he, should have been, and stuff like that. So it's, you know what I mean? Once he's at that level, I think he just stays there for fear of not being able to get back.
I think a lot of those guys, especially back in those days, they didn't know how to turn it off. I think I told you guys about the time that I sold Triple H a printer when I worked at Best Buy. He came walking, is the one in Nashville. He came walking in. He was in gimmick. He had his nephew who was drawing penises everywhere within the store. We were finding penises like for the next week and a half.
Yeah.
Which is the funniest thing. Every now and again, we're like, oh, Triple H's nephew was here. But he came in and he had the jacket. He had that leather jacket with the denim over it.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, really? He had that outside. He was wearing that
Yeah.
outside.
dude, he was full cerebral assassin gimmick walking through Best Buy.
Sledgehammer in one hand.
That's the only thing he was missing, and he was in full gimmick. And I ended up selling him a printer. And I was like, I got to ask you, what's with the gimmick tonight? Why are we doing this? He goes, you don't see anybody bothering me, right? I'm like, all right, fair enough. But even in his private life, he's buying a freaking printer. Tells you how old the story is. But he's buying something at a Best Buy and he's in gimmick so people don't mess with him.
Yeah.
And again, not justifying anybody's actions who do any of this stuff, but I really believe that if we can blame CTE for a lot of the things that people do, I think there's a lot of mental issues that a lot of professional wrestlers have, probably because the lines get blurred between the gimmick and the real person.
For sure.
And I'm not trying to give anyone an out, but I think there's something that might actually legit be there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just saying. I think you can get lost in it very easily.
Oh, definitely.
Unless you're
Especially
Duke
back
and
in the old
Ambrose.
days when they're on the road for, you said 350 days a year, you don't see your family at all. You're around the boys all the time. That's what's going to happen. You stay in that character. You don't get out of it ever.
Next thing you know, bags.
Right.
Little Randy Orton taking dumps everywhere.
Oh, there's a lot of Randy Orton stuff out there.
Oh yeah, that'll come out eventually too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there'll be stories about The Rock at some point. He was in a lot of those locker rooms.
Yep.
Especially when he runs for president.
Yeah, I was just gonna say if he runs for president, then that's when anything will come out.
Everything's coming out, right?
Yep. Definitely. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not trying to give anyone a pass or anything. I'm just saying that there's certain things that I don't think are taken seriously. And up until 10 years ago, nobody took CTE seriously.
Right.
No one ever took it. Was always just the abusive athlete.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, maybe there's something here that says, hey, this could actually be a problem. You know, I don't know.
Let's have to wait and see.
Thank you for watching part 4 of Through the Table podcast number 17. Part 5 will be out shortly.